Welcome to Nachsimanim. I'm Jacob Thomas. Mazel Tov on finishing all of Shmuel Aleph. Today we will begin with Shmuel Bet, and I'm using a little bit of a different presentation software, Google Slides instead of Gamma. Tell me how it goes. So we start this perek after the death and destruction at Mount Gilboa, where Shaul HaMelech was killed, and David receives this tragic news, and we have a profound lesson in the reverence for Hashem's anointed. So David is currently in Siklag, and after defeating the Amalekim, and returning his family that we had on Perek Lamed, on the third day, a man arrives from the king of Shaul's camp, and he approaches, his clothes are torn, there's earth on his head, signs of mourning. He falls to the ground before David and brings the devastating news. The people of Israel have fled, and Shaul and Yonatan are dead. David asks the messenger, how does he know they are dead? And the young man reveals that he's an Amaleki, and he claims that he found King Shaul on Mount Gilboa, leaning on his spear in agony. And according to this Amaleki, he begged for this man to kill him, and the messenger does. As proof, he presents Shaul's royal crown and bracelet to David, thinking that it will bring favor in David's eyes. David goes, and him and his men tear their garments and weep for Shaul, Yonatan, and all the fallen people. Now the Amaleki is shocked. He had no fear of killing the king, and he thought David would be very excited that he did this. David asks him again, where is he from? And he switches from an Amaleki to a convert to Amaleki, not fully Amalek. And David orders his execution for admitting that he killed the king. Then we have David's lament, Song of the Bow, where David composes a moving song to honor Shaul, Yonatan, and all the people. He praises Shaul and Yonatan, who are heroes, who are swifter than eagles, stronger than lions, and expressed his profound heartbreak over losing Yonatan. The Kina, how the mighty have fallen. As a recap, we have the Amaleki messenger that comes. After the battle in Gilboa, we have him claiming that he delivered the final blow to King Shaul. We have David and his men who tear their garments, and we have David composing his famous heartbreaking cry and lament to how brave Shaul and Yonatan were. We're in perek aleph of Shmuel, so just like Zrichu, we use in aleph. So, as tears come out of the olive tree, he tears his garments over the death of Shaul. This reminds us how Shaul in this perek died, and Amaleki comes to David and tells him that Shaul died, leading David to tear his garments and then tear the man who killed Amalek, and cries and laments over the death of God's anointed. We are going to now do a 4-perek back chazar, starting with perek chaf chet, in which we use a strong man. The really strong man pulls a witch from the grave for King Shaul. This reminds us how God stopped talking to King Shaul through all forms of prophecy. So Shaul went to a witch, completely forbidden, and gets him to pull Shmuel out from the ground, who gives a devastating prophecy about his doom. Perek Chavtet, in which we use a cot. The Plishtim threw away the cot as David was laying on. This reminds us how the Plishtim were gathering to fight Bnei Yisrael. David joins them, and the Plishtim create immunity against David, thinking that he would turn on them, so David goes home back to Tziklag. Perek Lamed, in which we use a melamed, a teacher. David hires a teacher for the children he rescued from captivity. This reminds us how David rescued his wives and from Tziklag after he returned and found that they were taken by Amalek, and they were kidnapped and his city was destroyed. After getting them back and the spoils, he would then give them to the people who protected them, the teachers that taught the students, or the people that stayed with the important treasure that couldn't go across. Perek Lamed Aleph, in which we use a lawyer. Lamed Aleph, law, lawyer, judge. The judge pronounces the death of the king. This reminds us how Shaul's defeating the Plishtim. Shaul's sons, Yonatan dies, and Shaul decides to ask his arms bearer to try to kill him. In the end, Shaul takes his own life, which connects us to the discrepancy we have in this perek. We're going to now do a 10-question pop quiz. Which perek does an Amalek messenger bring Shaul's crown to David HaMelech? Shmuel bet perek aleph. In which perek does King Shaul and his sons tragically die in the battle of Mount Gilboa? Shmuel aleph perek lamed aleph. In which perek does David miraculously rescue his wives and children from the Amalekim? Perek lamed. In which perek does King Achish dismiss David from the Plishti army? Perek Chavtet. In which perek does Shaul consult the witch of Endor before the battle? Perek Chavchet. In which perek does David compose the famous lament for Shaul and Yonatan? Shmuel bet perek aleph. In which perek does David sneak into the camp to take Shaul's spear and water jug? Perek Chaf Zayin. In which perek does Abigail intercept David with a feast to prevent a massacre? Perek Chaf Hey. In which perek does David spare Shaul's life and only cut a corner of his robe? Perek Chaf Dalet. Shoftim bonus question. In which perek does Devorah sing her epic song of victory? Perek Hey. That is it for today. May we be zocheh to finish all of Nach, one perek at a time, and remember it day after day. Welcome to the next Sefer. Have a wonderful day.